YouTube and Instagram sensation Ashley Neves, also known as the Tennis Mentor, joins us for this bonus episode of the podcast. And we answered your doubles questions that you gave me on my Instagram page. So we talk about the best times to poach, how you should plan your strategies and formations, and the most common doubles mistakes that he sees. So I hope you enjoy the episode. All right, so now we got the bonus doubles mailbag. I'm glad that you said you're getting more into doubles or you've been focused on it lately. We had a lot of doubles questions. And I know I just watched a video where you had the 10 biggest doubles mistakes. This person wanted to know what is the single most consistent doubles mistake that you see players making?
I would say if we're talking 3-0 to 4-0 level, it is hugging the alley, staying in the tram lines, basically keeping yourself out of the point. So I would say, generally speaking, that's it. When you get up the higher levels, I think, if you're looking at college junior players, those guys are great at getting to the center of the court. But yeah, around 80% of all shots in doubles travel over that middle third of the net. So that's where the action happens. You need to try and get there more often. And even when I make videos about this, people still say that they're getting passed down the line. But unfortunately, that's what they remember because, everybody feels embarrassed when they get passed down the line, but they don't remember the 99% of shots where they miss an easy opportunity on that cross court. So I would say that would be the biggest mistake that I see generally across the board.
I ask this all the time because it makes no logical sense to me, but if I watch any expert in any field and they all do the same thing, then I go, cool, then I need to do that. And I go, okay, well, I haven't seen many pro doubles players or collegiate doubles players, certainly not many 5-5 doubles players stand near the alley consistently. But then I go, but I need to do that as a 3-0 because the other 3-0 is so good at hitting in that 4.5-foot rectangle, which obviously doesn't really make much sense. So why do you think it is that it's an epidemic? Like we make videos on it all the time. I'll do an Instagram video once every 2 weeks begging people. And like you said, I'll get the same messages. Why do you think there's that resistance? And why do you think there's that little bit of fear of positioning yourself more in the middle?
I think that the tricky thing mentally in doubles is you have somebody else with you. And lots of people are afraid of letting them down. So, in singles, you get past and it's on you. But I think in doubles, that mental thing of having your partner behind you, that can make it more difficult. So I get it. I get that people don't want to be passed down the line. But, logically thinking, if you actually counted how many times you get passed down the line, you'd be able to count on one hand. And so I think you've just got to tempt your opponents to hit that shot and do it more often. I think it's the mental block of letting your partner down, I would say.
Yeah, my mindset was in anything in life, like everybody has a job to do. So my job at the net is to get the ball and hopefully play offense. I'm not up there to play defense. So if you're passing me cross court, which no one's ever thought about themselves getting passed in that way, but man, this person just keeps passing me cross court, my partner would be like, well, what do you do? Like all you do is stand up there and get the ball if I miss it in the net. Like that's not really all that impressive. So I feel like I'm letting my partner down if I'm not touching the ball. If I get beat down the line, 5 times, like you said, that's nothing. If I get beat down the line 25 times, okay, then I'm maybe not the smartest guy in the world. But that's how I always viewed it is we don't have halves of the court. We just both have jobs to do. And if I'm at the net, my job is to get the ball. If I'm at the baseline, my job is to make it as easy as possible for my net partner.
Yeah. I mean, the difficult part is I do know I've heard of players telling their partner to cover the alley. And that's where it gets tough because obviously those players, maybe they feel like their partner is much weaker than them and they want to cover 80% of the court. They want to hit as many balls as possible. And that is a bit of a barrier as coaches as well. When you have a partner that doesn't quite understand tennis, or they're just being greedy and they want every single shot. But that I get that a lot from people, when they're playing social mix in tennis and that their partners told them to cover their alley.
Yeah, I this might be harsh, but these are for my bonus listeners, so they already know me well enough. But I saw something and it was beautiful. It was don't take advice. It was about life. So it was don't take life advice from someone whose life you don't want. And I would say the same thing for tennis, where I'd say, I don't need to take tennis advice from someone whose tennis game I don't want. And if I watch them at the net and they're standing near the alley and they're doing nothing and they tell me I should do the same, I'd be like, cool, thank you. I'd be polite and then I just go on doing my own thing. So that's what I would encourage them with, because I do see a lot of 3-5s. It's like me on the golf course. Like my wife probably laughs at me because like I'm giving golf advice to my friends and I'm a golf amateur, and she's probably like, why would you say anything to them? And I do think it's kind of similar, is that a 3-5 coaching a 3-5, unless you really like the way they play the net, maybe you can just be polite and kind of let it slide.
Yeah, very true.
Okay. Next doubles question. What is your single best poaching advice?
Plan it. I would say a planned poach. I think sometimes players just rely on their reactions at the net and they're kind of waiting for an opportunity. But the best poach is a planned poach. So when your partner's serving, talk to them about it and actually have it in your plan, because that way you can confidently execute your poach and you can do it with 100% reassurance that you're doing the right thing. I think some people do it half-heartedly and doubt their decision and kind of pull out last second and don't quite reach it, and then their partner behind them isn't ready because they think the volley has got it. So planned poaches, that's a great way to start poaching. And then second to that is, instead of moving laterally to poach, move into the net. And if you think of geometry and you think of the line in which your opponent at the other end can hit cross court, their ball is traveling over that net strap. And if you can move as close to the net strap as possible, you'll cut that off within a step, maybe two. If you go directly to your side, you've got to make 4 or 5 steps because that ball has traveled further away from you. So, plan poaches are great. And then, if you're poaching, try to close the net down as opposed to moving laterally.
Okay, I'm just gonna mess with you here because I like you, but I gave 3 good times where you could poach that I kind of like plan. I go, hey, here are situations. I want to see how well you paid attention. What were the 3 that I gave?
Say that again. You gave me 3.
So when I gave that presentation in New
Yes.
Orleans, I said, "Oh, here are the 3 times that like I generally poach. Like here are 3 times where I think it makes a lot of sense. Generally speaking, I don't know the opponent." So you were in the back row, and I know you were just taking copious notes. I want to know if you remember my personal 3 times that I would poach. Putting you on the spot here.
So I am actually not going to quote you word for word, but I'm going to try to guess those 3. So
Love it.
you would poach when you've planned it. Would that class
Yep.
as one, or would there be?
No, well, no, all these are basically going to be planned. So I'll give you,
Okay,
you don't get a demerit for that, but you also don't get a gold star yet either.
okay,
They're all
okay,
they're all going to be planned. Certain situations.
okay. So you will do it if your partner serves tea. Um, oh, I'm trying to think of 3 different situations.
I'll give you a hint. 2 of them have to do with the score.
Okay, first point in the match. That was a
Yes.
clear one. Okay, first point in the match, because you know that most players are going to play a safe ball cross court on a big point as well. So anytime it's a big point, your opponent at the other end is, if they're wise, they're not going to go for a Hollywood down the line shot. They're going to play safer cross court. Um, and then third one.
Third one's trickier, and I actually want your thoughts if you agree with it. It has to do with the number of the shot in the rally.
Okay, I'm going to pluck a number. I'm going to say if your opponent has gone cross 2 times in a row back to your partner, you'll go across on the next one.
Okay, so you got 2 out of 3 correct, so that's a 66. So is that like a D in London? Do
That's a
they give
D.
letter? Okay,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got a
that's a
D.
D.
But you passed. That's passing. So what I always said was I like to go either off the serve or the return or the first ball. Number one, because points are short anyway. So if I was like waiting so long, I might not even get the opportunity. But also, I feel like people get itchy. Like your opponent is not that disciplined. So they go cross court 2, 3 times. And if they haven't won the point, I actually start to think like maybe they will just go down the line.
Yeah,
And I see that. But that's also when the net player is like, damn, I haven't poached. It's been 4 times. I haven't done anything yet. Maybe I should. And that's when my player gets burned. And so typically I'm like, hey, if you don't have the courage to do it after 3 or 4 shots, why don't we just sit it out and you can just wait for the next point? Do you see that holding up, or would you say something different?
I would say something different. And the reason
Love it.
being, I think when I played competitively, I was only playing singles. And I know that you played dubs to a very high level. And so there is a lot more about kind of finishing the point super quickly. Whereas I was a baseliner, I was far more comfortable at the back of the court. So I would actually, during the point, I would be looking for my opponents to be hurt. If my partner has hurt my opponent at the other end, that's when I'll be looking to poach. So regardless of how many shots in the point have been played, I will just be looking for how comfortable they are at the other end. And if they're looking comfortable, then I won't plan to poach unless one does float in. But I will be proactive in looking for them on the stretch or jammed up and that sort of thing. So I totally agree, though. I think people do get itchy, and it won't take long for them to ping one down the line. But I will be looking for how much pressure they're under, because I know that if they're under a lot of pressure, if they try and go down the line, they're going to miss it.
So you would be reading your opponent
Yes.
the second time.
Well
Love
done.
it. Last question. What factors do you consider when if you were like, let's say, college coaching a team, but even if you were playing yourself, what factors do you have when you call a doubles play? Like where the serve's going to go, what formation you're starting in, what the net person's covering or the baseliner's covering? What are those factors that help you decide what strategy to use?
So firstly, how the opponents are playing at the other end. So understanding what their tendencies are will impact, formations at our end. Equally, how the pair my team are playing. I encourage both back occasionally to mix things up too. And I think if one server at our end is not serving too well and they're relying on second serves, and that returner is just absolutely crunching the ball at the net player, then I would encourage them to start both back and work their way in together. I love using Aussie formation. I love using I formation for more athletic players. Aussie formation is great at club level. I think it's underutilized because, especially when you play it on the ad side, you're almost guaranteeing you both a forehand. So I would say to add variety, and a bit like what you said about big points, I would say if you're playing a game and there's tons of deuces, and on one side you're winning everything, on the other side you're losing everything. Generally, that happens more often when there's lots of deuces. Change something on the side that you're losing. If you're winning always on the deuce side but losing always on the ad side, when it gets to the ad side, change your formation up and just give your opponents something different to look at the other end, because most often that's going to force them to do something they don't really want to do.
I can go a lot of different ways with the way I do it, but one thing when I watch other sports, and I've heard this logic and I think it applies, is they say, what would your opponent not want you to do? Like if you're watching a soccer match and whatever, they don't want you to press and be like, oh, then you should probably press. Like they struggle with that. Or if a football team can't stop the run, then they're like, you should run then. And so I always kind of think like, oh, this guy's got a backhand. It doesn't really look comfortable down the line. Okay, well, he probably doesn't want me to serve wide and stay, or serve wide in the I formation and move to the right. So a lot of times if I get lost in myself, I just kind of go, what do I think this person doesn't want me to do? And then I just try to do that.
Brilliant. I mean, a great thing from Louis Cayer, who his the main role as the net player is to make your opponents feel uncomfortable, and you want to be unpredictable. And so, if you can put them in a situation that they don't want to be, exactly how you say it, I think that's the best tactic for dubs.